So I returned from the Apple event in London where they announced the brand new iPads. And here they are, the brand new iPad Air, which I'll have a separate video on. And this, which is what we'll be talking about in the video, the brand new M4 powered iPad Pro. I'll be unboxing this along with the new accessories, the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil Pro. I'll be talking to you about what is new and more importantly, sharing with you my opinions having used it. Is it worth your hard-earned money? And warning, some of my opinions might just shock you. Right, stop the music. This is big news. So in an attempt to become more environmentally friendly, Apple are not including any more stickers with their packaging. But let me know what you guys think. So one of the other updates this year is this new color. This Apple are calling Space Black. On camera, it doesn't do it justice because it looks very similar to the Space Gray that we've seen in the past with the iPad models. But trust me when I say, when you see this face to face, you will notice a slight difference. This certainly does look a bit more darker in color. So that's the unboxing experience out of the way. So what exactly has changed with this year's new iPad Pro models? Well, to begin with, this model that I have in my hand is the 11-inch variation. It also comes in a 13-inch. Still looks familiarly like an iPad. So we have this big sheet of glass in this form factor. So nothing really has changed that much from the styling and design. But what Apple have done is tweak small elements throughout to make it overall quite a noticeable change and difference. This thing weighs 444 grams, the 11-inch variation. And check out what they've done with the thickness. It is incredibly thin. This 11-inch variation is 5.3 millimeters, but the larger 13-inch size is an incredible 5.1 millimeter of thickness, which makes it the thinnest Apple product today. Something that nobody really was expecting or wanted, I would say, from an iPad. I think they would have preferred it to be slightly lighter, but what they've done is make it lighter overall and make it thinner. And they've done all of that while packing in the M4 chip, the thermals that have to manage that, this new OLED display, tandem OLED display, all of that we'll talk about in a moment. So from that perspective, it is very impressive what Apple have done with this. Let's talk about displays because OMG, the displays on the new iPad Pros are seriously impressive, both on the 11 and the 13-inch. This is new OLED technology. It's called tandem OLED design that Apple are using. And essentially it's two OLED displays that are controlled by the M4 chip. That's why the M4 chip is so important, and we'll talk about that in a moment. At the end of the day, they have given me some incredible display experiences. The screens are vibrant, they're bright, 1,000 nits of full screen brightness, 1,600 nits of peak brightness, 2 million to 1 contrast ratio. Definitely a standout feature of this year's iPad Pro design. The bezels are slightly thinner and they're probably noticeable more on the larger 13-inch than on the 11-inch size. But those displays are stunning. I mean, you're gonna really enjoy it when you're viewing content, when you're interacting with this display, which makes up a big part of the iPad experience. Now, what's interesting is by default, there's a slight level of anti-reflective coating to the iPad Pro displays. But if you need more of an anti-reflective, and this isn't for everyone, it will cost you an extra, you can opt for the nano textured glass display on the front. A few more things worth mentioning about this new design. As much as I like this new space black color, it will pick up fingerprints really easily. And I noticed this within minutes of unboxing. So if you're planning on going for this new color, just be aware of that. When it comes to the cameras, so in the past, the iPad Pros would have the cameras on the portrait over here. They've now moved it to the more natural landscape position, much better for when you're taking video calls, FaceTime, so that's a good move from Apple. But talking of cameras, on the back, they have actually removed the second camera, which is what the iPad Pros came with. There's no longer an ultra wide, you get a 12 megapixel main, you get the LiDAR scanner, and then you get a second ambient sensor in the corner over there. So now you have two ambient sensors, one on the back and one at the front. But yeah, does anybody still take photos and videos with the iPad Pro? If you do, let me know how you feel about that move from two cameras in the past to just one camera. So let's talk about the all-important what powers this year's new iPad Pros, because that's important. And in my opinion, that's what differentiates and sets apart the iPad Pro from all of the other iPads in Apple's lineup. And this year, Apple gave the iPad a bit of a treat with the brand new M4 chip. This is unusual because normally Apple will release this first in the Macs and then roll this out for the iPads. But this year, it's been the other way around. So what are we getting? We're getting the M4 chip, which is essentially built on the 3nm technology. In layman's terms, you're getting better performance at a much lower power rate. So it's going to be much more power efficient, which is great for something like the iPad Pro. You're also getting a 1 or 2 terabyte variation that will have 16 GB of RAM. You're getting 4 cores for performance, 6 cores for efficiency. If you opt for the lower end of the iPad Pro, in terms of capacity, you're getting 256 or 512 gigabytes. You're getting 8 GB of RAM with 3 cores for performance and 6 cores for efficiency. Something to be aware of if you decide that you need everything that the M4 can offer. So that's interesting to see. But what is even more interesting for me is the focus on the neural engine. And Apple teased this really well at the keynote, finally, by referring to AI. Now, what's interesting for me is Apple have always talked about AI going many years back, but they used a different term. They called it machine learning. Now they're using the language that most people are familiar with, which is AI. And essentially this is, in my opinion and my experience, what the M4 is really focused on. 38 TOPS or trillion operations per second. This is what the M4 will offer, and it's clearly indicated at what the M4 chip is going to be focused on in the near future. So with all that, right, you would expect me to say this is the best portable tablet that you can possibly get. And in many ways, yes, I would agree with that. The iPad Pro is everything that you would expect. It's great for gaming. Now with that ray tracing, really incredible graphics, video editing, content creation, consumption of content, it's great for all of those things. But here's the thing, the iPad Pro is still just an iPad. It's never, in my opinion, been about the hardware. I think throughout the years, what Apple have given us from the hardware perspective on the iPad Pros is incredibly impressive. What lets it down for me, for most users, is gonna be the software. Because I feel fundamentally that Apple's stuck now with the iPad Pro, because the iPadOS, don't get me wrong, is an incredible operating system. For the iPad mini, for the standard iPad, for the iPad Air, iPadOS is great. And it's gonna be great for most users that use the iPad and want the iPad for what iPad activities they might use. But for those pro users, this product feels like it's become more of a niche product. It's become a niche product for those people that use specific apps, specific workflows that they get out of their iPad in this form factor, whether it be with the keyboard or with the Apple Pencil Pro or whatever. But this is now going to appeal the iPad Pro to a much more niche audience. On paper, the iPad Pro with its modular styling and design, you can get a keyboard, you can use it like this, you can use it with an Apple Pencil, might make more sense. But I think more people will actually benefit from the Macs because there is now hardware that's backed up by the software for allowing more people to do more out of a Mac than there is out of an iPad Pro with all this amazing hardware but limitations on the software front. I kind of wish Apple could do more to unlock the potential for more people of what the iPad Pro has to offer. I'm not sure how they do that. It's a very tricky situation because the only way that I can think of is to have almost a different variation of iPadOS for the iPad Pro when compared with the other iPads. And yeah, that's a tough situation to be in for Apple. Now, the iPads have always been considered great modular devices, and this year we get 2 new accessories. The first one is the Magic Keyboard, really, really good. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then the other update is to the Apple Pencil Pro. My biggest issue with the Magic Keyboard has always been the size, the heft, but thankfully this year, Apple have trimmed down in more ways than one. To begin with, it's lighter, which I really, really like. It makes it easier to carry around with you. They've redesigned the pass-through on the end over here, which is nice to see. And the keyboard just looks and feels much more premium. You've got this aluminium on the front over here. You've got a larger trackpad, which is very, very helpful. And you've also, check this out, finally, a row of function keys at the top. It makes it much more practical. It still attaches with magnets on the back, but definitely worth considering if you're planning on getting a keyboard. The only unfortunate thing is that if you have an older keyboard, Magic Keyboard, it won't work with the current variation of the new iPad. So you're gonna have to get this if you want this format. Now, the other accessory is the new Apple Pencil Pro, especially if you're planning on note-taking or handwriting on the new iPad Pros. They come in a range of really cool boxes. I got this blue one, but this is definitely worth considering. Now, let me show you how it works. And there are a couple of things that I really like. The first thing is now it has haptic feedback. So when you're interacting, particularly with options and menus, you can actually feel that come through on the Apple Pencil. By the way, if you're in the habit of losing your Apple Pencil like I am, you'll be happy to know that this now comes with Find My. So hopefully you won't lose your pencil as often as before. The other thing that I really like, if I squeeze now, it'll bring up options over here. And as you can see, I can actually interact with those options without actually touching the display, which makes it, again, very, very useful. There's another feature called barrel roll. If you're into calligraphy, if you're into sort of writing particular fonts, then you'll start to appreciate. Can you see that? It shows up a preview on the display before I've actually touched the display. And again, this is very, very helpful for particular fonts and cursive writing. So I'm trying to practice my Arabic. So for example, that's going to be very, very helpful in that situation. By the way, I'm actually better than this. I'm just using the display on my phone to see through it. Mohsen. Hence the reason why it might look like a 5-year-old writing. But yeah, generally those features are very, very helpful in the Apple Pencil. And again, on the iPad Pro, it will charge. You just sync it up to the top and it will charge that way. They've made the new iPads so thin that they're actually thinner than the Apple Pencil. And I think on the larger 13-inch iPad Pro now, the Apple Pencil, like, you have to be a bit more careful with it because the Apple Pencil is now thicker than the iPad Pro. So that shows you just how thin they've made this year's new iPads. Those are my thoughts on this year's new 2024 M4 powered iPad Pro. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you want to check out the video of the iPad Air, be sure to click that over there. And if you want to see more tech lifestyle videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm M. Kwan. See you in the next one. Peace and blessings.